Firecrackers, and we're just about to get started. And the first topic we are discussing is rising cases of kidnapping in Nigeria. And the one that recently caught the attention of the media was these six sisters that were adopted in Abuja, and they were demanding for ransom. Unfortunately, one of the sisters got killed, but information that we've gotten was as at yesterday, these five sisters have been free, although it was not mentioned if the police, because it was the police that carried out this rescue operation, if ransom was paid or not. That information did not get to us. So now let us talk about the rising cases of insecurity, especially in the Federal Capital Territory, which seems to have been on the rise recently. What do you think is causing that situation, especially in the Federal Capital Territory, for that matter?
The it's a sad situation now facing the country currently, and before civilian administration, there were hardly any cases of kidnapping and all that. But with the handover to civilian administration, unfortunately, these cases started gradually, and when issue starts and you don't address it immediately, and you allow it to linger, it gets more ground, and with time it becomes a business. So kidnapping now in the country is a business, and people fund this business and support this business, and most times they are people in high places. That is why for some time now it has, let me not trying not to use the word that's come to stay. As long as we don't address it, it becomes a normal thing. And in states like Abuja, where everybody, it's like a central place where everybody from all walks of life and every state has access to. There's usually that tendency of things like that. But it's more so when our security agencies, for some time now, normally see they have gone to sleep. And as long as something is not being done about it, we'll continue to linger on same cases. When monies are being allocated and you have one of the largest budgetary allocations given to defense and security agencies, and there's no audit on what those funds are being used for, that means there will have to be crisis that will make the money increase. If they have bought this, subsequently there may be no need to give them money for capital projects. Particularly if the ones that they are addressed, they may go for new ones. But when a situation where you give them money and everybody's quiet, and then the next year they bring more budget and you give, certainly there will be need to cause more problem. And sometimes they have been usually been fingered to have sponsored or supported in one way area or the other. So as long as you don't audit what they use that money for, there's tendency that crisis will continue. So that security votes and security allocations will continue coming in. So these are some of the issues. And when a government, or since which administration, we have not recruited anybody. So a lot of persons, young persons are looking for jobs. And when you are looking for jobs, you go to the big cities. Abuja is the first. You go to Lagos, you go to Port Harcourt. Once you are not being available, or you are not being given, those young hands are not being properly enhanced or given something to do, they are available for recruitment into anything. People must eat. And if they have to eat, they have to find themselves doing something that gives them that resources or that money or their daily bread. And unfortunately, if they are not being recruited to work for the good of Nigeria, certainly they'll be recruited by the criminal gangs to be able to venture into kidnapping.
Alright, so now I feel like it's time for us to welcome. We have to give you a warm welcome to our guests that are joining us virtually. We have Adams Abu, a security expert, joining us live from Kogi State. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us on Firecrackers today. Also, we have Professor Tajuddin Akonji, who is joining us from Abuja, who is a peace and conflict resolution expert. Many thanks for joining us on Firecrackers.
Thank you for having me.
Alright, so I'm going to be starting with Adams Abu. You see, the past administration, that is the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, he was accused of sympathizing with bandits and terrorists. And because of this, some people find that that is the reason insecurity and kidnapping, banditry was on the rise during this administration. But now we are in a new administration. It seems as if it went down a little bit and now it is on the rise again. So do we say that, does this prove that perhaps it might not be the fault of the past president, or is it just carryover from how insecurity was managed from the past administration that we are currently suffering the consequences now? Okay, Adams Abu, could you please help us switch on your audio? We cannot hear you at this time. Okay,
Okay,
all
can you
right.
hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can hear you now. Please go on.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the issue is even before immediately we began to experience insurgency and terrorism in our country. Don't forget that we were caught napping. We had nothing in terms of security preparedness to deal with the situation, as it were. We didn't have adequate training, we didn't have adequate technology, we didn't have adequate armament, we didn't have adequate personnel. And so over the years, we have been, trying, one policy or the other to make those things right. And we were not able to get it. Whereas for the bandits and the terrorists, it was easier for them to recruit, it was easier for them to operate, it was easier for them to get support, their own sponsors and things like that. So over the years, we continue to have this challenge. And when you're talking about the present administration, yes, when they came, there was a lull in the upsurge of insurgency. I think what was happening was that even the terrorists themselves were looking at the situation, studying the situation, whether we were bringing in something new to deal with the situation or we're going to continue as it were. And I think having studied us enough that we really don't have anything new from what we had before, they came back in very full force, especially very, very more daring than before. The rate at which they kill their victims and things like that. I think that is the situation. So the present government, for me, is yet to do. I know the chief heads of security have been briefed, and they are putting their acts together. But we don't seem to have done something spectacularly different from what we had before.
I thank you very much for that. And now to Professor Tajuddin Akonji. A lot of people, well, even there was a time in the National Assembly that it was passed that payment of ransom should be criminalized. But the situation we have at hand is anyone who has conscience, who has empathy, would not be comfortable with seeing their loved ones in captive. Because for the case of these young ladies that were kidnapped, we saw flyers on social media. They are trying to get people to raise money for them so that they'll be able to pay these bandits, these kidnappers that ask them for money. So how do we go about situations like this when it is frowned upon that we should not pay kidnappers, we should not pay them ransom? And then there's also this conflict about this pain of separation that we feel for our loved ones who might be in captivity.
Thank you so much for having me. You see, when you do not address a problem with the whole thing that it demands, and you are just catching it in the middle, the root causes will continue to remain there and the problems will go there. The idea is that security is an all of the people affair. The idea of leaving the entire thing to government to actually handle and people going to sleep is just because we are forgotten that these terrorists, these bandits, these people that are engaged in this criminal act are living in our midst. They listen to our television stations. They listen as we are having this program now. Many of them are listening to us. They are part of everything that we are doing, and they constantly change their tactics. So the idea of just anytime there is insecurity, we just run after the security agency, the security chiefs, and run after them to come and solve the problem means that we are applying wrong approaches to addressing the problems that is confronting us. Things that are causing security have been identified to be multifarious. And apart from the idea of the physical security, which we have always been emphasizing and which we are not doing appropriately, the other things that are causing the problem in our midst, we continue to leave them unaddressed. And when we even get our security agencies to go to the front to confront these people, the more they kill, the more new ones are created, and after some time they become overwhelmed. So it is not the idea of whether ransom is being paid or things like that. I want you to understand that professionally you should understand that terrorists, criminals take charge of opportunities. They make use of opportunity once they know that the opportunity for them to be able to carry out their nefarious activities without being caught exists. They are going to continue to continue in that way. But if you remove the opportunity for them to be able to carry out this thing, then the problem that you are going to confront will be very minimal. Payment of ransom, are you sure that some of the people that are even raising the issues on the social media, raising funds for ransom to be paid, are not part of the people that are involved in this thing? The issue of insecurity in Nigeria has become a business, like the past speaker has said, and everyone, so many people are involved in it, and they are carrying out these activities unabated. The idea that we should look at is to look at an all-encompassing, approach to addressing this insecurity, such that while we are pursuing the criminals, we are also removing the root causes that is creating the creation of new criminals that are doing this. And at the same time, we are protecting other citizens from being affected by what is going on. And then we get ourselves prepared, not necessarily when the attack is when we start to set up people to say, don't pay ransom, do this thing. There is no how. When anyone feels that the government cannot address the problem that they are having, they are going to pay ransom. They are going to pay ransom because they want their loved ones to come out, and they have seen situations where they have refused to pay ransom that these people have been killed. Because the people that are engaged in this thing don't care for whatever happens to anyone. So I think the idea that we should look at is to look at a kind of a systemic approach to addressing these issues so that everything will be there. If you look at the new hope agenda of the present government, if you look at the security sector that they address, everything has been put there on paper. But the implementation of this involves everyone being involved. The idea that we have now that we just think that it's only the security agencies that will be addressing this problem, and we do not see security as a public good, then we are not going to arrive at a veritable solution. So I think they should have to mobilize the citizens to know that everyone, including the common citizens and all those things that are on the street, will be involved in this fight against, because the nature of banditry and terrorism that we have in Nigeria is such that it is different from what happened in so many other parts of the world. And coupled with the fact that because of the advent of the ICT, because of globalization, and because of the changing nature of these attacks and a number of other issues that are socio-economic happening in our environment, it means that our calling on security chiefs, security agencies to address these problems alone is not going to get us to the point of solution. So I think we should look at how everyone will be mobilized and get engaged, because security agencies are not magicians. They dwell on available information in forms of intelligence. And where are this intelligence located? The intelligence are located among the citizens. For as long as citizens stay back and they do not participate in addressing this problem, security agencies will get overwhelmed, and like they are getting overwhelmed. It is not that they are not achieving success. It is not that they are not getting these people degraded. It is not that they are not bringing them down. But the more they bring them down, the more we create new ones. and it is getting them overwhelmed. So I think we should look at how everyone will be involved in addressing these problems. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. And now to my guest in the studio. Now
Uh,
we've been talking about,
Hello?
you
Okay.
know, trying to get
I
everybody
wanted-
involved in fighting. Oh, okay, I am listening to you, Adam Sabu. You said you wanted to make a contribution. All right, please go ahead.
When we are saying that everybody should be involved, the citizenry should be involved in providing intelligence, in providing support, in participating in the security of our nation. But if you look at advanced nations where citizens are involved, who provides the leadership for the citizens' participation? It is the government. It is the government that has, and how does the government go about it? Every citizen in most of these countries that we are talking about, that we have been to, they have a stake based on what their government have done for them. The spirit of nationalism is in each citizen of those countries. In our own country, how many Nigerians are nationalistic in providing services for their country without demanding for any type of remuneration? If you ask me, I'll say zero. And again, let us look at even one of the very, very solid policy, the community policing that was introduced by the last administration. If you look at our various communities now, how effective has it been so far? So the government must have that political will, and we as a country must be ready to face this monster called corruption at all levels. If you look at local governments today, if we have, okay, the last speaker was talking about getting to the root cause. In other words, the economy, the standard of living of the people. What services have you seen the third tier of government rendering to the local people to ameliorate their sovereign in this country in the last 10 years? Certainly, if you ask most people, nothing. Most of them don't, even the officials don't even stay in their local government. So there is so much. We need to get our governance right. We need to get our governance right. That will assist security, because it's in that governance that you make good policies. You make budgets. You vote budget to security agencies and other sectors of the economy. How effective have they been used? There must be a system to follow. You and I were here when there have been this hue and cry about a chunk of money going into one account or the other is under investigation and things like that. So we should be able to face those things and bring good governance. If we have good governance and we can fight, this level of, it's very, very easy for bandits and terrorists to recruit, especially in those parts of the country, considering the economy of those places. So if we as a nation can face this squarely, and we will have less of kinetic operations, but now we have to rely upon them. Then when you come to kinetic operations, for instance, how many of our forests where these people are operating from as their bases are under technology application in terms of assisting the security agencies in their operations? Because if you go to these countries, you hardly see any security agency at checkpoints, because there are equipment here and there that should tell them what is happening in their various places. These people are in these various forests for the past 15 years, and so far so good. We have not been able either to acquire those that kind of technology or put them into use, because we have not gotten our governance right. Look at election in this country. You and I know what is going on everywhere. So we need to get up. We need to get up, and government will provide the leadership. This is what is done across the world. I think when we do this, we'll get to where we want to be.
All right, thank you very much for that. So the question I wanted to ask earlier is, since we are insisting that the citizens too have a role to play in managing insecurity, that we shouldn't leave it all for the security experts, the ones who are in the office to fight. So one of the situations, especially in the Federal Capital Territory, that was described is someone, someone who just raised alarm about missing genitalia, and once people are gathered there, they use that opportunity to rob people. Would you say that lack of adequate information, because Hearing something like that seems ridiculous. How could one claim that one's genitalia is missing and that would make a lot of people gather, and then from there people are robbed? Important information are stolen from these people that they track them to their houses. We also got information of landlords they went to the house of a landlord, they were able to get him out, and then they took him to another place. This is how they carry out all this operation. So would you say that it might be because our people are not being educated enough on these subjects to be able to discern what is right from what is wrong?
I won't really accept that.
Well, okay.
For me, I'll first of all say that the government, from the past administration to what we have currently on ground, we have not been doing the right thing. And the right thing I'm talking about is actually giving adequate punishment to corporate or people, criminals that have been arrested. If you check from how many years back, those persons that have been arrested for one wrong or one crime or the other, are they persecuted? No. They have been freed. Some of them are currently in government now. It shows that we actually accept and we reward crime. So if we actually discipline erring officers, we discipline criminals, it will serve as deterrent to others that even have the intention to. When that doesn't happen, it's allowed. Let's not forget, before now, last year, there were certain times that Airport Road was being attacked by hoodlums. Some persons came there and started scattering moving cars. Nobody was arrested. That was in Abuja. So, if crimes happen, and the other time was Deborah, you know, recently, it was in Jos. How many hours were people being attacked? Are you telling me that security agencies were not around this side, these areas, or they didn't get this intel? There are many places that some of these criminals even write later formally to give to security agencies that we are coming to attack this place. And they will come and carry out the operation successfully without without anybody even trying to stop them from doing it. And if that have consistently happened over and over again, it means they are gaining more ground. If we have done it in a small scale and the security agencies are nowhere to be found, we'll come again. And if people that they have given them monopoly of use of arms are failing to do or protect people, which is their primary mandate, how can you expect the common citizens to be able to just pop out? And the issue of missing genitalia, these things have been happening in different places at different times. People have come out to complain, things like that. And those little pockets of stealing and crimes, these things happen a lot. But let's say before we had independence, there was what the community policing we had, or some of us knew then, or heard about then, was a situation where at the level of committees, even till date, in some of the locations, it still happens till date. In each community, there are young persons that actually help in community policing. Now, a lot of these persons have converted into vigilante. But before now, they were not in uniforms. They were just young persons in the area. So in the night, to see them roaming about with torchlights and the rest. If any person out in the night to commit any crime, they will arrest them and hand these people over to the police. But after independence and with the military handing over power to the civilian, most of these persons actually maybe relax and allow, okay, now the police and other persons should do this. And to a large extent, most times these communities make calls to the police officers. How often or how fast can they get to such communities? Or how many police officers do we have in a station that can police a particular area? And then, what are the available resources at disposal of such stations? Do they have maybe hillocks and all those things to move? I know of how many stations that police a particular large areas and they don't have any vehicle. Instead, they may use their personal vehicles or they hire buses to be able to go for these things. It's not supposed to be so. That is why initially I said most times where security agencies are most times reactionary instead of trying to plan to prevent things from happening. And this is because the other speaker said something about lack of political will. At the same time, when you appoint persons into positions based on sentiments or tribal affiliations or religious affiliation, it affects. So if you have a planned template of how you want to do it, and then when monies, budgetary allocations are being made, after each year you audit, have you been able to achieve certain things? What is the money being used for? As long as you don't do anything about that money, there will always be reasons to commit more crime. And let's not forget, most of these so-called criminals are friends to security agencies.
That is really something deep to talk about. So now let me get to Professor Tajuddin. A past senator that was representing Kaduna State, he mentioned something that invoked thought from people. He said that if we look at these people that are kidnapping, they are always in tattered clothes, they are always unkempt. They don't look like the type of people that enjoy the benefit of getting millions of naira from people, which perhaps shows that they are just the henchmen, and then they are working for someone who is the one receiving all this money. And then he advised that perhaps instead of trying to target these ones that they are the ones on the forefront, they are the ones doing the kidnapping, they should get their bosses, the ones giving them the command, and the ones who are empowering them with weapons, and the ones who are finally receiving all the money. What do you think of that for a solution to the issues of kidnapping in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, just like I said earlier on, and like I agree with one of the past speakers, the issue of governance. I told you, any area where government is not able to provide service to the citizens, certain individuals within the community take advantage of such areas and they make it business. Okay? Just the way in which nursery schools, when government neglected education in the past, that people started investing in creating nursery schools, both standard and substandard ones. When government failed to give people water in the past, some people decided to start to invest in making pure water, whether it is pure or poor water. The same thing happens. The moment they see that there is a gap, like I told you, criminals look for opportunity. The moment the opportunity is there, they go into that opportunity and then they take it. Senator who mentioned that those who are there, it means that they know that certain people, how many times have they mentioned to us? Even in the National Assembly and all those things, we have some individuals who have been identified and named as criminals, but the will to be able to do it is what we call the political will, like one of our speakers here. But the idea is this: when we say that the government, what is the origin of government? The origin of government is that some of all of us, majority of us, get our authorities and rights and submitted it to a few people, and we ask them to pretend over us and use those rights, use those privileges to service us. When they don't service us properly, we should be able to bring them back. So it shows that even those government that we provide the leadership, each community will have the kind of government it desires. It is the same people that are actually following. Let election time come, because they know that poverty has been weaponized and that people have been taken to the point that they no longer can reason properly. They will now start to bring out people, give them peanuts, and still make them to return them to go to these places without doing anything tangible for the people. So if we know where the source of the problem is, if we decide that this is what our problems are, and we want to address it, we are going to be able to address it properly. I told you I'm living in our midst. From the United States, I was in one of the he was in the bush with some of the kidnappers, and on a Sunday, one of them told him that, oh, today is Sunday, I've not gone to church. He now asked him, oh, you mean you go to church? I said, yes, I church, because I know that what I'm doing, I'm being forced to do it because there is no alternative. And also, I also go to because where I get victims. Because the moment somebody comes out and he announces that, oh, praise the Lord has done this type of thing for me. They identify the victim. So it shows you that these people are really in our midst, and that it is we, when we see security as a public good, as something that things must own, it is we who will determine. Like the guest in your studio mentioned that in the past that they used to have volunteers in the communities who will come and make sure that their communities were safe. That was the thing why we started agitating for community policing. But look at how political they took it, that they said, no, we cannot have community policing. Many states where they say they don't have they don't want political policing, they are doing one form of community policing, the other. Nobody will be able to secure the environment more than the environment people themselves. And like one of the speakers mentioned, the subnationals are not doing anything. Everybody is saying that no, it is federal government that is in charge of doing this, and then we left it. The local governments are not doing anything. Whereas this insecurity happens right from the local community. When the community decide that they want their environment, their society to be safe, society will become safe. It is not that we will wait until we get good for us to be. We want to be able to have security for us because we are all affected. There is inflation, food inflation. Nobody is able to go to the farm because many of those people who are supposed to go and farm for us are in IDP camps. Some of them are being killed by bandits. No, none of them could go to the farm to go and do this thing again, and everybody is being affected. So by the time we realize that this is what is happening, then we become our own police. In other places where you say that people to do this, their challenges are a bit different. Many of them, when they go outside to defend the territory of their nation, they go to far places to go and fight wars, to go and deploy their districts. Our own criminality that we are doing is the non-state actors that we are fighting around us. Those who are disgruntled, those who have graduated. When the policemen were coming out of the academy, they told them the kind of criminals they are going to meet, that they are going to meet these criminals and they will be able to deal with them in this way. They did not tell them that some of these criminals will be graduates of 8 years without job. Graduate first-class brains that we have, sent out of the brink of the society. So the challenges have become so multifaceted that the idea of looking at it must be everyone. So if the senator who said that yes, some of these things are there and they identify them, if they are able to come out that which something is affected and name the people, and then the government has the guts to hold them to account. Let us raise the bar of penalties. When people see that somebody who committed this corruption or whatever was sentenced to death and was killed, and they know that nobody is a sacred cow, I'm telling you, everyone will go and then will become saved. Like I told you, it is just because criminals know that the opportunities to commit crime is still in existence and that they are able to commit this crime without being caught. We don't use technology. I was in a party sometimes ago. A criminal came to remove phone from my pocket. It was caught on video. We submitted this video to the police, but there is no database for them to be able to identify who the person was. This is not going to happen in other places. We have so many places where we are putting money. We are first party in ICT. People still collect their money. They still use our phone. They still go through the bank. They do all these things. We are still unable to catch them. So it means that the criminals know that the opportunity to commit the crime without being caught exists. That is why a criminal in Nigeria will go abroad and become well behaved because he knows that place is going to be caught and it's going to be brought to book. So the idea that we should try to do is that we must, everybody, come out and say that, look, we want a secure nation and we want a leadership that is going to be able to provide this kind of security for us. And then we are going to fight corruption as a nation. Because even when you give money to the local communities for them to share, you still see before people try to cheat.
All right. Thank you so very much, Professor Tajuddin. We will come back to you shortly. Many thanks for sharing your views with us. So now to Adams Abo. this issue of insecurity and perhaps lack of willingness on the part of security operatives is really something I feel we need to talk about, because whenever we have cases that has to do with a celebrity case or the one that has really caught the emotions of people on social media, and if it's people in top positions, we always see that these people are caught because it seems like that is the only time our security forces swing into action, and then they operate well. So I feel like we could say that this means that it is not that our security personnel do not necessarily have the tools, they don't have the equipment or the experience to do these things. But do you feel like what we need to address is that slow pace to tackling issues of insecurity, especially when it's not one that has gotten the interest of a state government somewhere, or it's not the child of a celebrity or someone famous?
I think what is happening is that we are misconstruing why the situation is like that. You see, we have talked at length at several fora the inadequacy of personnel, equipment, technology, and other resources. Now, what happens is this. When there is a case that has a very high social media, publication, so to say, the security agencies, particularly police, seems to do something very immediately. And the reason is obvious. They try to mobilize their resources in terms of personnel and technology to face that particular case and deal with it immediately. That is what is happening. It's as opposed to where there is an incident in possibly maybe in a local government or in a town where policemen there are just 5, where there is no vehicle, official vehicle at that place. You don't expect them to respond as immediate as they will respond when there's this hyper kind of case on their hands. There are some of these cases that you hear the IG directs, the CP directs, is because of the sensitivity of that case. But what they do is to mobilize resources to face that kind of case. But at the local level, where are the resources for you to mobilize? There is nothing for you to, there are no men. Before you send, the DPO sends signal to the headquarters for headquarters to coordinate operations room and all the like, maybe the vital evidence and so on must have gone. And so it happens. But let me deal with another issue. I think the last speaker talked about a situation where you can convert certain, challenges to business model. In security, it's not everything you can convert to business model. In our own country, I give you a typical example. If you take the private security in this country, we have generals, we have retired senior officers of the DSS, senior officers of the police, civil defense, and all the like, who have a private security company. But notwithstanding all our trainings, you are not entitled to carry arms. You cannot recruit any guard and give them arms. And so if the guards are where the robbery is being, even when you are a retired soldier or whoever you are incapacitated because you don't have any weapon to deal with. So there's still so much for us to look at and then bring it up for us to work on. Look at, we were here, I think the administration before Buhari or so, they brought these cameras to Abuja. How long did they work, if they ever worked at all? And under normal circumstances, individuals that have CCTVs in their home are supposed to be connected to the operation centers of the police nearby. How many operation centers that can manage CCTV do we have in this country? But this is what happens elsewhere. And that's why we have always said that the political will and the political leadership are the ones that need to do something, ensure that it is implemented for us to make progress. When we talk about the participation of the citizens, I want to repeat it again. Even normal security tip trainings on local radios or seminars for youths, for traditional rulers, these are things that are done elsewhere. Have we started it? How often? I know some local governments or some state government tried it one time. All they do mostly is maybe when the new government comes in, they have during their seminar, they call 1 or 2 persons to deliver security lectures, and that's the end. I think we need to do better than that, because as it is, the insurgents are becoming more deadlier, and we need to wake up. We need to wake up. You talked about some of the insurgents that they look wretched. Where is the money that they collected? It's because you did not do classification of these kidnappers. Which one are you talking about? There are kidnappers within the town who's just like the one we had in Lagos and the one that just been exposed in Abuja of recent. Those ones, whatever money you pay to them belongs to them. But when you have these bandits and these terrorists, they have leadership. I remember I read. I saw a video of recent when the leader of the terrorists that kidnapped the JNJB girls, I think in Zamfara or so, was interviewed by a particular journalist. And they asked him, the 60 million you collected, what did you do with it? He said, we use it to buy arms. So in that context, is that the one that it is reported being paid in Abuja, it's not the money to be shared. So you will not see it in them. But if there are these other ones that are just for the economic something, it goes to their pocket. They know what to do with it. So that is why you have them looking like that. But let me say this. I want all of us, including government, to believe that we are at war. We are at war. And when you are at war, you do things abnormally. Our recruitment should be abnormal in terms of the number that we recruit. Our training, our acquisition of technology and equipment should be abnormal in terms of volume and in terms of efficacy. And then the mobilization of the citizens should be abnormal by way of, either through radio, through seminar, to make them know that everybody is now feeling this impact and we must do something to overcome it. I think we need to step up our game.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So now to my guest in the studio. In the week, President Tinubu mentioned that one of the things that would solve, or that might solve the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, is education. And also, coincidentally, during the week, we have the president of Ecuador saying that they are going to deploy AI, that's artificial intelligence, to help them fight insecurity in the country. Now, if we look at how Nigeria is when it comes to technology-wise, do you feel like this is also something we could be looking into, or is the president going in the right direction when he mentioned that education perhaps might be the key to solving issues of insecurity in the country?
Okay, that is actually good, and for me, just like one of the persons spoke, one of the other person speakers said, it has to be more like multi-sectoral, not just in one area of just education. Education will be important in the sense that for the police, the duration of trainings they have, maybe 6 months for recruits and 18 months for cadets and all that. For some of us, those time has not been sufficient enough to actually be able to give them the training they need to actually police this type of democracy. But even the retrainings we have at police training institutes of the defense, NDA and other training colleges that we have in the country. Yes, these trainings have been going for long. But the question is, what have they come, or in their carrying out their work, what have they done to reflect this training? That is why I said earlier about audit. When you are talking about audit, you do about personnel audit. What are the quality of persons you have and the skills each person has, so that you can be able to post them to a department that will be useful and relevant. You go to the monies, the finance, the money is being allocated to these persons. What are they using it for? The money for capital project, are they being used? The money for repairs, how they award this contract, Who is it going to? What is the processes involved? What is the criteria for giving money to this person? You go about the operations and you check when you go around all these different sectors and then see that, and then into health and all these things, and see their mental health and check all these things, you'll be able to address, be able to notice the gaps and see what can be fixed. We are most times, most administrations come out and play lip service and just say certain things. We are tired of hearing. We want to really see the work. So if you want to the area of education, good. Let's push it more in the aspect of tech, because for me, the number of security agencies or officers we have on ground, they can be sufficient if we have enough tech working. So if there's capacity in that area, and I think the Police Act, as well as the government itself, also gives room where expertise, those that are even outside the security sector, can be brought to actually bring their skills to bear on them carrying out their work. So this is an area that needs work. Countries like Philistine that have a similar number of persons or populations we have, most of these countries have similar or even lesser number of law enforcement officers, but they are being able to complement this with tech. So if we can do the same, it will actually help. Another issue, outside the education, there are also other issues I would also like to point out. On the side of our correctional centers, when you have a lot of persons awaiting trial, 70% of persons there are awaiting trial, and then at the end of the day, you delete them and then release them. Already, don't forget that most jobs, there's stigmatization of ex-incarcerated persons.
In fact, mentioning that, some people have opined that perhaps the recent Kuje prison break might also be the reason that insecurity might be high in the Federal Capital Territory.